Well, I've been watching some videos. Oh, look at this. It's about to start a video, and got a visitor. That's Tbone. He just walked in and was like, hey, pet me. What's going on, buddy? He is coming up on 13 years old next year. Still thinks he's a kitten. He's definitely my cat, because, yeah, this. Middle of the night, he'll show up on the bed and just want to go, hey, I want to cuddle. So, yeah, what's going on, buddy? Anyway, so, just as I start recording, this happens. Anyway, so, been watching some YouTube videos. Oh, guess he's going to leave. Probably a good thing, because he was probably covering up the mic. So I've been watching some YouTube videos, on photography, and I've noticed something that some of the YouTube photographers do, and that is they use the term bokeh and shallow depth of field interchangeably. They'll say bokeh when what they really mean is shallow depth of field, and there is a difference. And bokeh means the quality of the out of focus areas. So it's kind of dependent on certain things being out of focus, but it's not the shallow depth of field itself. It's just how does a lens render the areas that are out of focus? What quality is there? Is it a pleasing quality, or is it, something maybe rough and not very attractive? When I got into photography in the 1980s, and I started shooting with the Canon FD system, the out of focus quality of out of focus areas, I never really paid attention to it. Either stuff was in focus or it wasn't. Didn't really look at those qualities. So my memory, thinking back to some of the lenses I used, I couldn't tell you whether the bokeh was good or bad. And people I know who were in photography at the time, whether they were hobbyists or professionals, I never heard any one of them mention something about that. So it wasn't really until the 1990s that I became aware of the fact that you can design a lens to have pleasing out of focus characteristics. And of course I had switched over to the EOS system, the EF lenses, and at the time Canon put out a paper lens catalog. It was a little brochure, but it had all their lenses, and it had a little blurb about them. And on some of those lenses, couldn't tell you what, probably things like the 135mm f2, which has nice bokeh. It said special attention has been paid to the out of focus rendering characteristics of the lens. Never use the word bokeh. So how did we come up with this word? Because it is a Japanese word. It was actually derived from a Japanese word, or actually a phrase, bokeh-aji, A-J-I. B-O-K-E-A-J-I in Latin characters. What happened is, because Japanese photographers started really paying attention to this, even in the 80s, they were paying attention to the out-of-focus rendering of lenses. And the lenses of the time that were produced in Japan, they didn't pay a lot of attention to those out-of-focus qualities. Now, I had a Canon FD 50mm f1.8. That was the kit lens. Again, couldn't tell you whether the lens had pleasing out of focus. The thing about those lenses is they were designed to be very sharp. With the Canon 50mm f1.8, to stop it down a bit, but once you did those things, it was really, really sharp. Beth, my wife, when we met, she had a little Nikon FG. It's a little one of their little compact SLRs, and it had a kit 50mm. It was an E-series 50mm. I think it was f1.8 maximum aperture. That lens appeared to be sharper than the Canon. And so my guess is, because I remember looking at some of the images from it, even wide open, going, that is just a really sharp lens. My guess is out of focus rendering on that was probably not great. But wanted to talk a little bit about how that word came over to North America and into the English-speaking world. And it goes back to an article that was published in 1997 in the magazine Photo Techniques. And at the time, the editor of Photo Techniques was a guy named Mike Johnston. Now, Mike Johnson still is active. He has a blog. It's called The Online Photographer. Mike, interestingly, lived in Oak Park for a time, and he and I have a mutual friend, a guy named Josh Hawkins, who back in the 90s was the manager of Oak Park Camera. It was a really nice little bricks and mortar camera store. Eventually got bought by Helix, which was a larger camera store chain in the Chicago area. So Josh moved on to actually be a staff photographer for the newspaper group that I actually currently freelance for. And after that, he moved to Las Vegas with his family and became a staff photographer at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Kind of a bit of a digression. It has a pretty cool Instagram page. Josh Hawkins. But anyway, and of course Mike moved on. He moved to Wisconsin. Now he lives in upstate New York. But at the time he was the editor of Photo Techniques, and the writer, whose name escapes me, and I'm going to link to the article, so you'll have all that info in the article, was writing an article about this paying attention to the out-of-focus rendering, and that the Japanese had a phrase for it, bokeh aji. And the Japanese frequently would drop the aji, so they'd say bokeh. So Mike, as editor, said, let's do this. Let's add an H to the end of bokeh so people don't think it's bok, right? So it's obviously bokeh. And then the author wrote the article. And that's how that word came into our lexicon. And of course, in America, it's bokeh. Up north of the border, it's bokeh. Sorry, just kidding, Canadian friends. Sometimes I think that's actually sort of a nice way to put it because, you know, if you look at a bouquet of flowers like roses, that's a really nice bouquet. If you made a bouquet of dead branches, that's not a nice bouquet. But down here we say bokeh. So that's pretty much how the word came to be, at least here in North America and the rest of the English-speaking world. But it does not mean just shallow depth of field. And, you know, there are lenses that do a really good job of rendering the out-of-focus areas, especially when you have things like highlights in the out-of-focus areas. People talk about bokeh balls. Pretty easily, I can tell you, you know, if you've got a bokeh ball and it's nice and even and you don't see any onion ring patterns or a bright ring around the outside, that's preferable to have any of those characteristics like onion rings, which a lot of aspheric lenses do. So a lot of lenses today have that onion ring look. The bright ring, that was something that the Canon 24-105L did, the very first one. I had that lens. That lens was kind of spotty. Sometimes the bokeh looked good, and sometimes, depending on the subject, it wasn't so great. Usually prime lenses are going to have more attractive bokeh than a zoom lens. It's just easier to get that type of quality into a lens with a prime than it is with a zoom. Not always. There are some zooms that have nice bokeh. In fact, the Lumix, the 35-100 micro four thirds lens, the f2.8, I think that is actually pretty attractive bokeh. So that's it. A short little video about the word bokeh, what it means, and when you hear somebody online saying bokeh, when you know that they really mean shallow depth of field, now you know. Hopefully this was interesting to you. If it was, hey, bop that like button. Any input, comments, questions, leave them down below. I get to those as soon as I can. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.